Okay, good morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. This is episode 191. We're in 2 Samuel 18. I posted verses 1 through 15, which is this. This is going to be a complete turnaround from where we've gone so far. I entitled this "The End of Absalom and His Rebellion." That is, in this portion of Scripture, Absalom is killed, and his rebellion comes to an end. After this happens, the tough part now for David, because Israel and Judah are divided, is trying to get things back together, and that's going to come up, but that's going to be difficult as well. So let's talk about how the rebellion of Absalom comes to an end. All right, and remember, Ahithophel said we need to take care of it right now, because if you give David time, that he'll regroup and then we won't stand a chance. Well, that's what happens. So we start in chapter 18, verse 1. It says, "And David numbered the people that were with him and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them." Now he's putting together his military structure. This is what David does. He knows how to go about a battle. He knows how to go about a battle better than anyone else here. So he's starting to lay out his strategy on how he's going to take on those that are supporting Absalom, the Israeli army. "And David sent forth a third part of the people under the hand of Joab." So again, we're dividing it. A third goes under Joab. A third goes under the hand of Abishai, which is Joab's brother. And a third part under the hand of Ittai the Gittite. "And the king said unto the people, I will surely go forth with you myself also." So he's divided the army under three generals, three commanders, and then he says, "I'm going to go with you as well." This next verse is really good because he's an old man here. He says, "And I'm going out to battle with you." It says, "But the people answered," here you go. These are the people that love him, all right? He's the king, but this isn't going to happen. He says, "But the people answered, Thou shalt not go forth." You're not going. He says, For if we flee away," that is, if we get beat, all right, he said, "they will not care for us. Neither if half of us die will they care for us." That is, there's such animosity here that if we get beat, we're just going to get wiped out. That's what they're saying. I mean, there's not going to be any quarter given here after what's happened, all right? And then he says, "Therefore now," let's see, "but now thou art worth 10,000 of us," which I think is interesting. All the commentators have something to say about this in regards to the high regard and respect and honor that they have for David. They're looking at David saying that you are worth 1,000 of us. And by inspiration, this is the assessment of the people that they have for David. You see, on one side, we have those that criticize him and speak of him in such low terms. You know, like because of what happened, and you're going to deserve all this, and on and on. And then you have those who understand that he is God's anointed, and here is this commendation, which has to tip the scale the other way as you consider how people evaluate David. You can find yourself on either side of this. You can say that David is either, this is all happening to him because of the murder and the adultery, or you can say like this: when the people look at him and say, "Now it's time to get back to work," we're not going to risk you on the battlefield because you're worth 1,000 of us. 1,000 of us. Now there is a commendation, is it not? Yes. I just want you to factor that in as well. That sometimes we lose sight of the value of the people around us is the point. Now this is by divine inspiration, but you don't want to lose sight of the value of those that are around you. All right. And it may not be to this level, but I think there's a principle for us that sometimes the good or the value of an individual is lost or it gets muddled. But these folks here that are on the side of David, who have actually given up everything to support the king, recognize him and honor him in this way. And then it says this. He says, "You're not going to go with us." He said, "Therefore now it is better that thou succor us out of the city." And the word succor is to help or to aid. basically what they're saying is, you stay in the city, and we're going to need supplies, and we're going to need reinforcements, and we're going to need backup. And you're going to be behind the lines. You're going to be doing work behind the lines to support those that are on the front lines. So you stay behind, and you're going to help us by administrating that need of sending supplies here, or sending supplies here, or sending men here, or sending men here. And you can run the strategy to support the battle from behind the lines. That's what they're saying. But you're not going to lead us out into battle. You're not going to be out there in the fight. That's the point. You can help us behind the lines, and especially because Absalom's got this great army, the Israeli army, and at this point they're not sure they're going to win. And isn't that the way it is? You just do what you must do, and you trust it to the Lord. That's what's happening here. So it says, and the king said unto them, what seemeth you best, I will do. So the king says, sure, we'll do it. He said, and the king stood by the gate side, and all the people came out by the hundreds and by the thousands. So he just watched, like in a procession, as the armies and the thousands that have supported him leave and are on their way to take on Absalom and his army. It's just an amazing thing, in your mind's eye, for the king. And as you walk by, these reviews, where they march by the king, or they march by someone in review. That's what we see as they're going out to battle. All right. And the king commanded. Now listen to this. This is just the beginning, but I want you to note this. And the king commanded Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, the three commanders who are in control of the army, saying, deal gently for my sake with the young man, even with Absalom. We're going to go out there and we're going to win, but when it comes to Absalom, I want you to handle him with kid gloves. That is the command of the king to the three commanders that he's divided the army amongst. I want you to handle Absalom with kid gloves. So the people went out into the field against Israel, and the battle was in the wood of Ephraim. Now, this wood, we're going to find out more about it. This is a thick forest. We're going to learn later that more people died because of the density of the forest than in the battle with the sword, which, and the commentators say that we're talking about cliffs, we're talking about pits, we're talking about the terrain that is treacherous. Plus, you're in battle. So what some men also argue, we'll look at it here in just a bit, that when they could see the battle was going against the army of Absalom, trying to get away was impossible because the woods was so thick that they were getting caught in the bramble and in the trees, which made it easy for the army under David and Abishai, Joab, and Ittai to kill them because they can't get away. It's not like they're in the open field and can run for their lives. It's like they're stuck in the thicket of this thick woods. So both the terrain and the thickness of the timber there, the woods, made it very, very difficult for this battle to be fought. And one of the commentators, and I think he's right because it doesn't say this specifically, but Joab and Abishai and David and Ittai, these guys are brilliant. Now, I don't know, who's on the side over here leading the army for Absalom. I don't think it even tells us. I'll have to look. But we know the three names of these famous men that are leading David's army. These guys are military guys. So what they said is they looked at the terrain and said, we'll funnel these guys all into the woods where they can't use their numbers. And that's what they said. Undoubtedly, the army of Absalom was larger than the army of David. But what Joab, Abishai, and Ittai have done under David's thinking is they have funneled these guys into a place where numbers don't matter, like they're in this woods. Because if you get them out on the open field, then it's going to be tough. But if you get them where the terrain is actually helping you, well, let's do that. And that is what a lot of the men that comment on this say, and I think there's some real truth to that. Okay, so let's keep going. So it says, so the people went out into the field against Israel, and the battle was in the wood of Ephraim, where the people of Israel were slain before the servants of David. That is, they got them in a place where the numbers didn't matter, like in a funnel. It said, And there was a great slaughter that day of 20,000 men. Now, he's talking about what happened with the men of Israel that were on the side of Absalom. I mean, this is a terrible battle. All right. For the battle was there scattered over the face of all the country. That's the other thing. After this happened, things start. I mean, the forces are broken up. That's the point. Things begin to spread out. And it said, and the wood, and this is it, and the wood devoured more people that day than the sword devoured, which is what I just referenced. That that once this happened, I mean, the terrain itself was so formidable that many men died just being stuck in the woods and in the ground there of this forest in Ephraim. It said, and Absalom met the servants of David, and here we go. Now you're finally running into Absalom. This is in verse 9. Absalom finally runs into those that are fighting on the side of David. And Absalom, here it is. This is the famous story. Remember, he has this head of hair. And my sister, because I told you I couldn't tell because they weighed it every year. She said it was about 5 pounds of hair that they cut off. Now, hair doesn't weigh very much. You got to have a lot of hair for 5 pounds. What does it say? 200 shekels? It's about 5 pounds apparently. So he's got a lot of hair. And so let's read about it. And Absalom met the servants of David, and Absalom rode upon a mule, and the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head caught hold of the oak, and he was taken up between the heaven and the earth, and the mule that was under him went away. So he's riding, he's in this thicket of all these trees. He gets his hair caught in a branch. Now he's getting sucked off the mule, and the mule just walks away. All right. And here is Absalom suspended between heaven and earth, just hanging by his hair in this oak tree. So he can't reach the ground. He's hanging by his hair. So he's just hanging there, absolutely helpless. Helpless. I mean, he can't do anything. Even if he had a sword, you could just reach out, or you could spin him, whatever. He's just hanging there. And it says between heaven and earth, he's suspended between the ground, hanging from this branch of the oak tree. Okay? It's crazy. And a certain man saw it and told Joab. We don't know who this certain man is, but he says, Joab, you won't believe what I just found. I found Absalom hanging in an oak tree. It said, and I saw, and that's what he said. Behold, I saw Absalom hanged in an oak tree. I mean, he can't go anywhere. This is what I found. And Joab said unto the man that told him, and in the commentators, they just say it's some man. We don't know who this guy is, just some man. But this man knows what the rules were for engaging Absalom, that we don't touch Absalom. All right, he knows that. He said, and behold, Absalom says, and behold, thou sawest him, and thou didst not smite him there to the ground. Joab says, you saw him hanging there and you didn't kill him? Oh, man. The word that others use in regards to Joab is unscrupulous. And wait till you read the rest of this. I'm going to jump ahead here a little. But you recall that Joab killed Abner, the general of Saul's forces, right? At that time, he was with Ishbosheth. But you know, Joab and Abishai, but primarily Joab, kills Abner in a time of peace, right? And David mourns the death of Abner and walks behind the casket, right? Joab is an unscrupulous, I was going to use the word weasel. He is the nephew of David, and he is something else, this guy. Now, listen to this. This exchange here is going to explain more about who Joab is. Anyway, I got to finish my story. After David is gone, David, or on his deathbed, he tells Solomon to make sure that Joab does not go to die in peace because he killed Abner in a time of peace. And that's when Joab is hanging on the horns of the altar. I get along. And Benaiah says, well, he's hanging on the horns of the altar. And Solomon says, so kill him there. All right, because he's just fulfilling the wishes of his father, because it was due him, because he killed Abner, it was murder. So this is Joab. That's his end. His end is at the hand of Benaiah by the direction of Solomon, David's son. So he said, why didn't you kill him when everybody knows David said don't? And then Joab says this, I would have given thee 10 shekels of silver and a girdle. So he said, I would have made you a rich man. And the idea of the girdle here is a recognition that military men give one another. It's like, it would be like medals or a sash to identify yourself as a hero of the nation. This girdle, it would have been something that would have been of more value personally probably than the money. He would have been rich, but to think that you had been honored this way by the military because of the victory that you, or the hero that you were in killing Absalom, that's what this is about. He says, I would have honored you and I would have made you a rich man if you would have just killed Absalom. So the man is looking at Joab like, well, what's he going to say to that? The next passage here is amazing. He says this to him in the verse following. He said, and the man said to Joab, this guy, we do not know his name. Though I should receive 1,000 shekels, you're going to give me 10. If you'd have given me 1,000, see, here's somebody loyal to the king, of silver in mine hand. He says, yet would I not put forth my hand against the king's son. No, you can't pay me enough to do it, to kill the king's boy. He is the king's son. He is the enemy. The one responsible for Absalom is David. Is the king. He is Absalom's king, and he is Absalom's father. He's the one that should be dealing with this. Leaders, military leaders against military leaders. Government officials, so to speak. We have the king against the one that wants to be king. This does not fall to anybody else to do. And that's what this guy is saying. He said, you give me 10 shekels. If you'd have given me 1,000 shekels, I'm not going to do it. It's the king's son. He said, and then he goes on, for in our hearing, because we heard, it said, for in our hearing, the king charged thee, you Joab. This is the general. This is some guy. He's just some guy. But he says he's looking at the general saying he charged you, he charged Abishai, and he charged Ittai, the commanders of the forces, saying, beware that none touch the young man Absalom. What you're suggesting here is absolutely opposed to what the king said. Joab, this guy. The honorable man here. And then it goes on. Listen to this, verse 13, because this guy knows how crooked Joab is. And verse 13, otherwise I should have wrought falsehood against mine own life. That is, in this deception, because if I'd have killed him, so to speak, in secret, this would have been a testimony against myself, and I would have brought myself and placed myself in trouble with the king. He said it would have been something that it would be like I'm shooting myself in the foot if I'd have done this, because even if it was in secret, he's going to say the king knows everything. I would have finally been found out, and then I would have violated the instruction, the command of the king. It says this, otherwise I should have brought falsehood against myself. I mean, this lie would have been against me, all right, of doing what the king said not to do. He said, for there is no matter hid from the king. Nothing is hid from him. Isn't that interesting? It's interesting because, of course, this is not omniscience, but this is a great picture of, you be sure your sins will find you out, all right? The king is going to find out. He finds out about everything, Joab, and of course he does. He said, and then it says this last part, the last part of verse 13, and after I would have done that, let me just fill this in, and after I would have killed him, and the king would have, and you would have paid me for it, and this is what would have happened. He said, and thou thyself, you would have set thyself against me, that when I got in trouble, then you would have buried me too. You would have sided with the king and said, yeah, king, you're right. This guy killed Absalom after you said not to. Let's dispatch him. Because really, Joab is not on this guy's side. He just wants to see Absalom dead. even if it means violating the king. But the guy knows that even if I did it, even though you're acting like you're my friend, once the king finds out, you're just going to side with the king against me anyway. There you go. Is that a lesson to learn? Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Is the person you're talking to after he wants to reward you for something actually on your side? This guy says, no, you're not. You would have given me 10 shekels of silver. You would have advanced me in the army. The king would have found out because he finds out about everything. And then when I had to actually stand before the king, you would have just thrown me to the under the bus. You would have thrown me to the wolves and sided with the king against me, and I'd have been the enemy anyway. There you go. If you run into Joab, you need to keep your wits about you in your life. If you run into this guy, just because he wants to promote you and honor you, if he's going to promote you and honor you by doing something that the king says not to do, don't do it, because when push comes to shove, he's going to betray you. He's going to turn his back on you, because what you've done, he's going to look after himself first is the point. Okay? This Joab, he's something else, all right? There's things that Joab does that are good, but he is a sneak, all right? He is a wily person, all right? And then verse 14. Then said Joab, he said, I may not tarry thus with thee. He says, I'm not staying long. And he took 3 darts in his hand. So I looked up darts, because everybody says darts. Why is it darts? So much written about this. The darts could have been just a sharp stick, because in those days, I mean, not everybody was well armed, but it would have been just something that had sharpened. Some say it could have been wood, smaller, or iron that had a sharp edge on it, a tip. It's not a spear is the point. That's why they translated dart, and the idea here is that he's taking these short, either iron or wooden sticks. Some even suggest he just used something that was there in the woods. All right, I mean, I'm not saying that, but a dart, if it wasn't just a conventional weapon, and he takes these 3 and he slams it into him. He pushes these darts into him, but he's not dead when he's done. It is the men that rally around Joab that kill him in the end. But Joab is the one that sets it up, and Joab is the one that's accountable, because Joab is the general, and he's authorizing this. So these darts, what did I write down here? Sharpened sticks, maybe iron. And when he leaves them after the darts are in him, he's not dead. So he finds them hanging in the tree because of where the guy said he was. He goes back. He takes these sticks or iron stakes, a stake that's got a tip on it. He slams them into the body of Absalom. He said, and he took 3 darts in his hand, thrust them through the heart. Excuse me. Thrust him through the heart of Absalom while he was yet alive in the midst of the oak, while he's hanging there. And then verse 15 says, and the 10 men that bear Joab's armor, that would have been those that accompanied the general, all right, his praetorian, compassed about and smote Absalom and slew him. Now that's undoubtedly with a sword or maybe arrows, or probably a sword. So Joab is the one that initiates it, but the ones that put him away are his armor bearers. All right, that bear his armor, and it says compassed about and smote Absalom and slew him. All right, and that's as far as I'm going to go. No, a little bit more, 2 more verses. Verse 16, and Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing after Israel, for Joab held back the people. And then verse 17, and they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit in the wood. That is, they threw him in a hole. All right, this is David's son. And laid a very great heap of stones upon him, and all Israel fled, everyone to his tent. That Israel is the side that was following Absalom. And I'm going to stop there. It's 33 verses, but there's so much that happens between verse 18 and 33. I thought I'd just break it in half. All right. Okay, that's the end of Absalom. We learn a little bit more about Joab. We learn about the victory that's won, and Absalom is gone. I just want you to note here, if I get down to verse 33 in this, Lord willing, we'll look at this on Monday. But when David finds out that Absalom is dead, this is verse 33. And the king was much moved and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, thus said, okay, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, deep grief, lament. Would God I had died for thee. Would God that I had died instead of you. O Absalom, my son, my son." This is what I've been trying to get across all through this. After everything that has happened, he loves his boy, even though his boy is trying to kill him. He's the king. He's an old man. And now his son Absalom is gone. And at the same time, when he's in Jerusalem, he doesn't even call him to talk to him. And then down here in verse 19, in verse 4, it says, "Oh, my son Absalom, oh, Absalom, my son, my son." It keeps going. And in verse 6, Joab says to him, "In that thou lovest thine enemies and hatest thy friends." You seem to love your enemy, which in this case was your son, more than the people that actually stretched their neck for you to go out and fight against his army. This is Joab. All right, that's later, but this is just a remarkable relationship between David and Absalom, because Absalom just wants to kill him. And David, after he's dead, just cannot get over the loss. All right, he's brokenhearted, and the language here is just so sorrowful. Okay, yeah, that's good for today. So happy Friday, good to see everybody. And let's see, Lord willing, I'll see everybody on Monday. And if you have any comments, suggestions, anything, you're always welcome. But it's great to see everybody. Have a great Lord's Day on Sunday, and the Lord bless you. Yep, we'll see you. Bye.